Hello, everyone. My name is Fariha, and I'm going to talk to you about language today. And the question that you have been asking is, what is language? But before I proceed, I want to tell you something. Whatever I say might seem silly to you, but make sure to hear them all. Because whatever I'm going to say, if you hear them clearly, if you hear them correctly, then you're going to understand something by the end of the day. Okay, so let's proceed. What is the first thing that comes up in your head when you hear the word language? And that is grammar, right? What is another thing that comes up in your head when you hear the word or see the word language? And that is sense. How do you actually represent language? By voice. You talk, right? That's how voice comes. Okay. Another way that you can state a language is by order. Order of words. You get to say parts of speech, and there are many more. Well, the first thing that came up in my head when I actually saw the word or wrote the word languages are these words. That's part of speech, order of words, voice, grammar, sense. Okay, but before I proceed, I want to tell you something. I'm going to start from the very basics. And if I start from the very basics, you have to cooperate with me. You have to understand exactly what I'm trying to say. Okay, let's start with babies. When babies are first born, you know what they say. They say something, right? They try to talk. They say something. They make a sound. They don't usually try to talk, but they make sounds. They cry, and then that's how we understand them that they need something, or they're like smiling, or they're like laughing, or they're like giggling. They need something. That is their way of language. So what actually is language? When this baby, she or he, when babies actually grow up, they tend to hear others speak. They actually hear others speak, they learn, and they copy them. They imitate others, and then they learn, and then they copy them. So the language is the way they express something, the way they're using, the way they're communicating with someone. Let me say something to you. This voice that I wrote over here, okay? This voice is really important. Children, they use voice. Adults, they use voice. Listeners, they actually listen to voices. Okay? So, what actually is language? Language is this voice that you use to talk. I am telling you something, okay? And I'm using my voice. That's where the word expression comes in. Okay, that's where the word expression comes in. So, what do you think this expressing thing is? Like, I'm telling you something, and those things are coming up in my head, right? And if those things are coming up in my head and I'm expressing them, I'm telling them, then it means that this voice is important. This voice is used to tell you something, to communicate with you something. So, language is the expression. Language is expressing. Language is the way we express our thoughts. To be more exact, language is the way I'm expressing something, you're expressing something. In a sense, we are expressing something. We expect, right? We expect to understand each other. We expect to actually communicate. We actually try to understand the things that we are indicating. So, language is basically that part of the system in where you're using gestures, you're using written figures, you're using emotions, you're using ideas to communicate. So, language is that system of communication where you use information to communicate, where you pass on this information to someone else. Okay, so language is, in the very basic sense, it's a system of communication by written figures, gestures, emotions, ideas, words, and sound. Okay, now we have done with the language part. Now let's proceed to the grammar part. So, what is grammar? I'm circling grammar over here. This grammar is actually that set of rules that we use in language to make sentences. We use grammar. Grammar actually controls the way words are structured so that they can be arranged in a consistent way, so that we can understand words better, so that we can understand what the other person is exactly trying to communicate with us with, and what the person is trying to say. Grammar is that part of a language which is like really important because without grammar, words wouldn't have been structured properly. And grammar is like really important. I'm going to talk to you about grammar in my other videos, and I'm going to talk to you about many things in English language and many interesting things in English language in my other videos. So today I'm going to talk to you about grammar. I already talked about what language is, and I made sure that you understood my video, my speech, the way I'm talking to you clearly. I hope I'm clarifying everything so that it is easier for you to understand what language is. And I will clarify, inshallah, what the other parts of grammar are in the future. Okay. I'll tell you about 7 elements of grammar, like the 7 main elements of grammar, and I'm going to present to you my screen. Okay, wait. You see this? There are like 7 main elements of grammar, and the first one is syntax, the second one is morphology, the third one is parts of speech, the fourth one is tenses, the fifth one is agreement, the sixth one is actually punctuation, and the seventh one is sentence structure. So these are the basic things, and I'm going to talk to you about them today. Well, there are a lot of other things in grammar, but today I'm going to talk to you about these only. It's going to be very interesting. Grammar is really fun. Okay. There are like 7 main elements of grammar. I've already told you that. And the first one is syntax. So, what is syntax? Okay, let me mark it. This is about how words are arranged to form sentences. It deals with the order of words such as the subject, the verb, and the object in a sentence. Okay, for example, she eats chocolates. And the incorrect sentence would be chocolate she eats. I'm going to give you another example over here. He walks there. You know, if I write it like this, walks there, the sentence structure over here is like really wrong. The words are not aligned properly, they're not in order. You know what I said when I mentioned about language earlier, that the words are, when I mentioned about grammar earlier to be exact, the words are structured properly. In language is basically when you make a complete sense and when you're like expressing something clearly in an order, that is what language is. But over here, look, walks there he. Over here, the sentence verb. This is a verb in the sentence came before, and then there is another one, and the pronoun came in at last. And that is like so wrong. It would be he walks there. I could tell you about another sentence. She said this to me. Okay? So if I write said she me to this, the sentence is wrong. It's because it's not in the correct order. The sentence is wrong, the sentence is right. The upper one is right, okay? She said this to me. So syntax is that part of the grammar which is like talking about how words are like arranged in a proper sentence. To form a sentence, you cannot just use words, combine them, and then form a sentence. That's way wrong. That is not correct. In order to make a sentence, you need to use the correct form of words, the correct parts of speech, and you have to align them together so that you could make the other person understand what you're trying to say or what you're trying to indicate clearly. Okay, I am done with syntax. Let's go for morphology. Okay, I'm going to make a video about morphology someday, and it's really interesting. It's about morphemes, like these words, like on how, like they're like they focus on how they're like formed from smaller units called morphemes, like prefixes, suffixes, and then there are like roots. I gave only three examples over here, like prefix, suffix, and root, but there are others as well. Okay, unhappiness is made up of prefix, suffix, and root. Okay, so it's like this: unhappy and ness. Prefix comes before a word, and ness comes after. I mean, suffix comes after. So what I'm saying is, like, there are other words as well, like rewrite. Over here, it's talking about repetition, right? So re is my prefix. Let me tell you about another word, and that is quickly. Over here, by adding ly, I made it into, I actually added this morpheme. This quickly is actually an adverb, and this ly is my suffix. You got me there, right? Okay, good. And there are other words like I wrote about rewrite. There could be other words like teacher. It comes from the word teach. The teach is my root, and this er is my suffix as well. You could write about unhappy as well, but it's not unhappiness. Like when you're like using unhappiness, it becomes, a combination of prefix, root, and the suffix. Unhappy over here, it's my prefix. Okay. I gave you some a little inkling, a lot less inkling actually, a little slight knowledge about what morphology is. I will talk to you about morphology in my upcoming videos someday. Okay, let's go to the most interesting part of English grammar, and that is parts of speech. I'm going to give you a slight hint of what is this. Like words are based on their types, like their categories, and that's how they function. So when we are using nouns, we are talking about a person, a place, or a thing. And example would be, okay, I'm using my name, Fariha, over here. I'm a person. Place would be Paris. A thing could be a book, or there could be other words as well. I could write the name John over here, Jack over here. And place, I could write about other countries or other cities. For example, place Bangladesh. I could write about a country. For example, which country do you want me to write? Let's go for China. And then Russia. And then America. There are other countries and there are other places. There are other places over here. I could write about those. I could write about New York. Okay, let's write about book. I mean, what is another word that could replace book? And it has to be a thing. It could be, say, a copy, a pen. So, these are like nouns. These are nouns. So these words could be replaced by pronouns, which is in the next stage. statement. Pronouns actually replace words to avoid repetition. For example, I wrote my name Fariha over here. Fariha is the name of a girl. So instead of writing Fariha in a sentence, in a paragraph continuously, I could write the word she. And instead of writing John and Jack, I could write he. And instead of writing copy or pen several times, I could write it or these. Who and which are interrogative pronouns. I would talk about them. Interrogative pronouns. I would talk about them, and I would make another video where I would talk about pronouns entirely. Like pronouns. Like when you're like writing a pronoun, it gets really interesting when you're going to know more about them. Okay, verbs. Verbs like they state actions. For example, walk, imagine, like the things that you're like doing. Verb is like what you do. For example, I could write about run. I could write about dream. I could write about eat. I could write about ride. I wrote over here walk is imagine. Let's go for adjectives. They describe nouns in the most simplest way I could tell you, like they describe nouns. For example, a blue dress, a beautiful girl, a beautiful city, a good student. Okay. And I'm writing about preposition now. Okay, there is adverb. Okay, I didn't talk about adverbs. That's presented in my sheet. It describes verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. For example, quickly, very. I already told you earlier that quickly is an adverb. Okay, so there are other adverbs as well. I could talk about prepositions, like they actually show the location and the direction and the time. They let you know about the time, they actually let you know about the direction, and they actually let you know about the location. For example, in, on, at, by, with, under. These are my prepositions. I could write a sentence. Like, for example, the bag was in the car. And I could write about where was that. Where was that in the car? Like I'm using the over here, I'm using a preposition and that is in. I used a preposition that is in over here as well. I could write about it was on the table. It was on the seat. It was under the mattress. I could write a million sentences. Okay, now let's go for conjunctions. Conjunctions, they actually combine words, like they actually connect words. They combine phrases, they combine clauses. We're using just only one word, and that is but, and, or, so, because. I could give you a sentence like this. Jack and John picked up their phones. See, I wrote Jack and John picked up their phones. I used the word and over here, and that is my conjunction. It's connecting two words, and the words are two names, and that is Jack and that is John. Okay. Let's go for introduction. I'll talk to you about parts of speech clearly and more in I will talk about the depths of this chapter, but this is just an element of English grammar, so I'm going very shallow. Interjections are those words which you use to express certain emotions. For example, wow, oh, oops, hey, ouch. These are the words. For example, wow, that dress is beautiful. Wow, that place is nice. You use these words to express how what you're feeling, how amazed you are, or how pathetic you're feeling, or how sad you are. You use these words. Or when you're like, when you get hurt, you use the word ouch, right? Like, ouch, that hurts. You're going to write it like this. Okay, I'm done with parts of speech. That is like slightly, of course, not done, not at all done like the way I planned. Okay, let's go for tenses. This refers to a time when the action and the verb takes place, like past, present, or future. Past would be she ran, present would be she runs, and future would be she will run. And the agreement become for agreement now, and that is like the subject verb agreement, and you could also get the noun pronoun agreement. The subject verb agreement would be he runs versus they run. And this is the noun pronoun agreement would be the student lost their book. Okay, you could have a question over here that instead of their, why haven't I written his or her? And that is the reason it's about simplicity, it's about inclusivity. So I'll talk to you about this. I'll have a video made for this. Let's go for punctuation. Punctuation marks like commas, full stops, question marks help organize the sentences, clarify meaning. To clarify meaning, like you're using a sentence and there are like no punctuations. You actually it won't clarify what you're like trying to say or trying to indicate. So punctuations are like really important in grammar. Okay, let's go for sentence structure. There are like different types of sentences based on complexity. And there are like simple sentence, compound sentence, and complex sentence. Okay, like sentences. I'm going to make a video about sentences regarding what a sentence is, and I'm going to make a video about clauses. I'm going to make a video about subjects and predicates. So this is just a simple indication of what the grammar's the main elements of grammar are. One independent clause, and you get she danced, or you could write she walked. Compound sentence would be when you're like joining two independent clauses together by conjunction. For example, she danced and he sang. You could also write, okay, wait, first let me write here. He ran and she shouted. This is my compound sentence, and another sentence would be complex sentence, and there is one dependent clause and at least one dependent clause. For example, while she danced, he sang. I could write another sentence like this. While she shouted, he ran. I'm done with my grammar part right now. Like these are the basic stuffs, like the very basics. I hope you understood all this clearly. I'm so excited to talk to you about grammar more, like in my upcoming videos. So if you're like interested, just I would upload them. I would upload my videos, and you can get to know more, you can get to see more, and you can get to learn more. So that's all for today. Thank you.